European social democracy is in a state of total political collapse. And unless centre-left parties across Europe learn from what's happened here in Britain with the Labour Party, then they face oblivion. Consider what's just happened in the Italian elections. The formerly ruling centre-left Democratic Party has collapsed in support. It's down now to about 19%. What we've seen in Italy is a surge of far-right, of hard-right, of xenophobic and nativist, anti-immigrant populism, as well as the rise of this quite complex populist political force called the Five-Star Movement.
Se questo è un progetto!
What's happened in Italy mirrors what's happening in other European countries as well. In Germany, in Spain, in France, social democratic parties could expect to get over 40% of the vote not that long ago. But the old social democratic and centre-left parties have collapsed. This is a phenomenon which is sweeping the European continent, and that's why lessons have to be learnt from Britain. We often hear from people who say, rah, 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 Labour didn't win the last election. Well, no one won the last election. That's why we have a hung parliament and we have a coalition of chaos with the Democratic Unionist Party running the country. Of course, what happened is the Tories were deprived of their majority and Labour got 40% of the vote. They got the biggest vote surge, going from 30% to 40% in just 2 years, the biggest vote surge for Labour since Clement Attlee.
Britain's war leaders fall like 10 pins as Clement R. Attlee's Labour Party wins sweeping victories in England's first general election since 1935.
In fact, they got the same share of the vote, practically, that Tony Blair got when he got a landslide victory in 2001. The difference is, of course, the two-party system has reasserted itself here. Now, before getting to the reasons why, there is an obvious retort to what I'm saying, which is, come on, in your massive Egypt, many of these European countries have got proportional representation as their electoral system. That makes it much easier to have splinter parties. We've got first past the post. You're not comparing like and like. It doesn't really work as a retort, that, because until recently, in many of these countries, the social democratic parties were getting more than 40% under proportional representation. In fact, significantly more than Labour was in this country at the time under first past the post. And actually, if you look back to 2010 and 2015, Labour's vote was fragmenting in this country. The rise of the Scottish National Party, the rise of UKIP, the rise of the Greens. Back in 2010, the Liberal Democrats. Do you remember that? Flagmania. Seems like a completely different political era. I think it's because of the dramatic political changes that have taken place within the British Labour Party that Corbynism has actually saved Labour from the same political fate that has befallen so many of its sister parties all across the continent.
I'm very proud to present our manifesto for the many, not the few. Thank you very much.
Labour now offers, in this country, a radical break from the status quo. It offers a clear, radical alternative to the other mainstream parties. Nobody can say with a straight face they're all the same here in Britain. And at the same time, it's tapped into the anger that millions of people legitimately feel about a broken social and economic order. There's another striking exception, and that's Portugal, where the Portuguese socialist government, backed by radical left parties, are reversing certain austerity measures. There's criticisms to be made, but that government represents certainly an alternative to the pro-austerity social democratic parties. And in Portugal, that government is riding high in the opinion polls. But the difference is, social democratic parties across Europe first capitulated to what I would call neoliberalism. And then when the crash happened, many of them either implemented austerity, implemented cuts, which devastated the lives of their natural core supporters, like in Greece, or they supported austerity measures, or failed to have a robust, bold opposition to those cuts. And what that's meant is they looked like the establishment, they looked like these kind of technocrats, they didn't inspire people. So either people stayed at home, we've seen in Italy turnout has plummeted over the last few years as people aren't inspired, or it's left a vacuum where the populist and far right, open far right, can say instead, you should be angry and we're going to direct your anger at those immigrants who are taking your homes and jobs and your lives are difficult. And because there isn't a clear alternative saying it's not the immigrants, it's the elites, it's the people at the top of society, that instead has inspired people who the left should be winning over. The old third way centrism might have made sense in the 1990s when you had the Clintons in the White House, you had Blair, you had Schroeder in Germany, you had Jospin in France, etc., after the Cold War and when living standards were increasing. But in the world after the crash and austerity, people are crying out for something new, for something different, which isn't about being managerial and tinkering and basically offering something very similar to centre-right parties, just a slightly humanised version. They need a decisive break. And if those political parties, like in Germany, like in Italy, like in France, like in Spain, they do not offer that radical alternative, then they will end up facing total destruction, and it will be the populist right and the xenophobes who will profit and benefit and thrive otherwise. And that is what Britain tells us. Take our example here, and perhaps, just perhaps, Europe has a future. But I want to hear your thoughts. Please give me your ideas, leave them as ever as comments. What do you think the future is? What does Italy tell us, and all these other European countries and that dramatic shifts that we've seen? As ever, we've got loads of videos, they're here, so click on them. We've got loads of cracking interviews coming up. As ever, subscribe. I'll see you next time.